So starting with Candy Ashdown. Candy, what do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do or what actions have you already taken to address this issue?
The most pressing issue for public education is funding, absolutely. Since 2001-2002 school year, we have increased our special needs students significantly, but our special education assistants have dropped by, I believe it's 800, approximately 800. We're not going in the right direction. We're actually going backwards, and we absolutely need to press for more funding. If elected, I will continue to advocate for more funding at the board table and encourage our board to advocate and absolutely.
Great, thank you so much, Candy. And you stayed within a minute. Shelby, what do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do or what actions have you already taken to address this issue?
Okay, so the issue that I think is most important facing Langley today is issues about space and how we configure our schools. We'll be faced with some choices about how we're going to use our space and what our schools are going to look like. So as a trustee, I think the only thing that I can do is listen to all of the people who are involved in this process and everybody who would be impacted. So basically to engage the stakeholders at all levels to make sure that the needs of everybody are met.
Thank you, Shelby. You can have a seat for now. Right, center stage. What do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do or what actions have you already taken to address it?
Well, I believe the most pressing issue is keeping focused on student achievement and students achieving everything they can do. And there's a number of factors that go into making that a reality. One of those factors, and a factor that's getting the most press these days, is around school capacity. And that legitimately is a big issue. But you need to keep an awful lot of other things in line, like giving teachers and students the right tools to learn with, the right supports, giving teachers the opportunities to improve their practices. Education in the world around us is changing. So there's a number of different factors that you've got to keep aligned, and you've got to keep the focus on the students doing the best and not get distracted by just one of those other things, because we'll fail our students if we let that happen.
So Lorraine, what do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do or what have you already done to address this issue?
The number one issue for this district and this province is getting funding back into the schools. I said I was really vocal on social media and during the lockout and then the subsequent strike, writing my MLA, writing my 2 MLAs every day, and the minister demanding that they properly fund our schools. I have a daughter who, because of their lack of support, wouldn't see a learning assessment for 5 years. So she would go into grade 9 when we put in the request in grade 2, and that's not okay. We don't have a full-time librarian. Those are extra support kids. We have, my daughter's teacher last year had 30 kids. She's doing her absolute best. She's got 2 kids with IEP, 3 that should have IEP, 2 who don't speak a speck of English, and she's doing her best. This is not okay. We need to band together with other districts, use a collective voice, and demand that they fund our schools properly.
Thank you, Lorraine. What do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do or what actions have you already taken to address this issue?
Thank you. I can stand.
Oh yeah, that's your
Yeah, wow, thank you. Thank you. That's a great question. Actually, the Langley Times has asked us a very similar question. I think that the greatest issue facing Langley is the same issue that faces every school board across the district. We have a chronic underfunding problem, and it starts right back at the federal government. How they've changed transfer payments to provincial governments by putting it into a single collator has caused our district or province to have to look at this basically like a Sophie's choice. Do we fund healthcare or do we fund education? And then provincial governments are now doing trying to do more with less, and that's not happening, which is then being downloaded to boards of education. As a trustee, I'm committed to working to lobby the provincial government for more funding, and in turn, trying to convince the provincial government to lobby our federal government, excuse me, I have a cold, for more funding. So as trustees, we have many things to look at, but one of the things we have to look at is how are we going to have that conversation about the fact that public education should be free at the point of delivery and available to everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Dr. Judy, what do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do, or what actions have you already taken to address this issue?
Class size and composition. Absolutely, that is number one. That's got to be solved. And there's not a lot you can do locally to that. I did grab Peter Fassbender and stood him up against a wall and said, come on, you got to do something. This is kind of crazy during the strike. And he gave me the prescribed answer that everybody else had gotten, which was not too useful. But I think that we have to become more, maybe militant is not quite the right term, but we have to become more concerned about where this is going for our students, because it's not going in the right direction. When things are going to the point where people are not getting a proper education for their children, then I think that we really have to find a better way, and it's going to involve money. There's just no other way around that.
Thank you, Judy. Have a seat, friend. What do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do, or what have you already done to address this issue?
Okay, I think the most pressing issue is that our district and no district is fully funded. And I think that in order to move forward with any of the other issues we have, that is the first thing that we have to advocate for, is to approach the ministry and continue to lobby for full funding. And it comes down to those, that kind of encompasses everything, whether it's the overcapacity we have on the slope, or whether it be teacher librarians are being cut, psychologists, counselors are being cut. It all comes down to the fact that they're not distributing more funds, and yet they're expecting us to still cover the QPLIF and I think it's BC Hydro that's going up, and now we're expected to pay for half of the school, things like that. So I think those are the kind of issues that can be resolved should we be able to have full funding.
Thanks, Christine. Allison, what do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? Come on up. And as a trustee, what will you do, or what have you already done to address the issue?
That's a long walk. You feel like you're heading somewhere, but not sure where. Thank you very much. Just want to take a minute to thank the LTA for having us here tonight. The most pressing issue, I believe, for Langley School District, and I answered this question in a survey that went around, I believe is our facilities challenge right now. I wanted to call it a crisis, and some would say it is, but we need space up in the Willoughby area. We're short on schools, we have overcrowding, we have underutilized buildings in other parts of the district. We have advocated as a board very hard for more school space. We had a meeting with our vice chair on Tuesday. We have been writing letters. We have been working very hard with both the township and the ministry, treasury board to get the funding for more schools. So that's what we're working on. That's what we've been advocating for, and that's what I believe we need to work on.
Langley, what do you think is the most pressing education issue? Come right into the middle. Facing Langley, and as a trustee, what will you do, or what have you already done to address this?
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for being here to hear some of our thoughts. I guess for me, it's all about class size and composition. We have 3 special needs children and 2 typical children, And so in the past couple of years, we've really seen the effects of the cutbacks and not being able to get resources for our children. But not only that, the fact is that for the other typical children who are in the classes, they're the ones who are paying for the price of not having funding. Teachers need more support, they need more money, and it's not just about me sitting up here and saying that they need more money, it's about action, and it's about advocacy. So my role is to fight and lobby and advocate for children to get money from the provincial and the federal government. That is about the utmost importance and will be the single thing that I will try and do the most, because it's so important that these kids have more funds and that teachers have more resources so they can do what they love to do, and that is teach. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. And as you're walking, here's your question. You can come on up. What do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do, or what actions have you already taken to address this issue?
Thank you. My perspective, the most pressing issue facing Langley is, my foundation is communication, and communicating the needs outwards to the families, bridging that gap with the families, ensuring that they're connected with, communicated to, and have a clear voice coming back into the district so that their needs for the children are being echoed as it reflects what's going on in the schools to support the teachers, equipping them, and then back again down to the child. I have participated in the PACs, the DPACs, the executive DPAC level, SPC, and I have participated at the BCC PAC and BCCSA. And I will continue to advocate forward on that. I'm working on documentation to build tools on my own personal ventures to ensure that we are equipping children, parents, and teachers to continue developing communication methods.
Thank you, Suzanne. And Pamela, what do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do, or what actions have you already taken to solve the issue?
Wow, is that a loaded question? I don't think that there is any one issue. I think there's a multitude of issues. There's the inner schools in Langley, there's the Willoughby Slope. Personally, what have I done? Not much, I'm not on the board. I've followed what's going on, I have some ideas about what to do, but until I'm in a position to actually do something about it, there's not a lot that I can do. I believe in doing a lot of research. Don't just jump into things, so I would look into solutions for the Willoughby Slope. I think that's going to involve some very frank conversations with the government. And then we need to look at the IT for the various different schools. It needs to be the same across the board, so all of our children have the same advantages. Some schools have iPads in almost every classroom. Some don't even know what they are practically. So like I said, there isn't any one issue facing the schools in Langley. There's a lot of issues, and I'd like to be part of the solution.
So what do you feel or think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do, or what have you already done to address it?
Well, thank you for this opportunity to speak. The most pressing issue that I see is what's happening along the slope. The Willoughby area is, I don't like the word used crisis, but it's pretty close. If we don't solve that issue over there, we're going to have some serious challenges. So I really believe that the number one pressing issue is facilities on the slope. So that's where I intend to spend my energies in the next 4 years. But we need to solve it before the end of 4 years, so that's for sure. What have I done so far? Thank you. Well, I've actually challenged the board to think a little bit differently. So if the ministry has shown some real positive steps in the last few days towards the board, and we're grateful for that. Should that not happen, though, Langley still has to go ahead. Langley needs to look after Langley. And so over the summer, I wrote a 5-page document called Is There Another Way? And so it's to get us to think differently about how to solve those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And David, what do you think is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what will you do, or what have you already done to address this?
Again, I just want to thank Langley Teachers Association and QP 1260 for this, and the members in the public. The most pressing issue in education is, of course, funding. Funding continues to be an issue in education, and it has been for at least 12 last years. I know, being a teacher, what has happened in the classroom, and I've seen situations deteriorate, and I know in my job as learning support, I've seen what's happened when kids with designation, without designations, they miss getting the supports. And a lot of the kids that have what we call behavior, moderate, severe behavior designation, it doesn't generate SEA time in often cases. So funding is a big concern. We need a fully funded education system. And I'm passionate about that. I'm not afraid to speak up to anybody about that. That's where my heart comes from. I've been working in the education system for over 30 years.
Thanks a lot, Rita. And our final, so Rosemary, what do you feel is the most pressing education issue facing Langley? And as a trustee, what would you do, or what have you already done to address it?
I feel that the growth on the Willoughby slope is something that we need to address. And I think we need to be positive in moving forward and finding solutions. So meeting at the table with the township councillors and just, you know, when it comes to development, I believe that in developing, I believe in neighborhood schools to begin with. And I find them to be safe for families. It's not that I don't believe in choice schools, but you know, for the most, people want to be able to be close to their school. And my kids, all 6 of them had that chance to be close to their elementary and their high school. So in developing schools, we need to look at developing neighborhoods that accommodate new schools.